Welcome into the Altcoin show today. We're going to do a deep dive on a whole slew of tokens for you. You guys are going to love this one. Give you a little bit of update on what's happening in CPI, which is a good thing in the, not the crypto power index, but the actual inflation. So we'll take a look at all that good stuff, and we're going to do it with a good friend of the channel here. It's going to be fun. My name is Paul Barron. Welcome back into Tech Path. Joining me today is Mr. Tom Crown, coming over from the Tom Crown YouTube channel. Great to have you, man.
Hey, Paul, good to be here.
Yeah, so let's get into a few topics. You would think that with inflation dropping down now to an actual of 3%, forecast was 3.1, we might get a little bit of a market run. Not so much as we thought, but we'll see how this goes as it starts to play out through the summer and coming into the FOMC. I think the question would be, when you look at, in general, I'll just kind of zoom in on that a little bit. When you look in general at inflation in past drops here, Tom, have you seen any kind of reaction in the charts when we do see something like this that is kind of somewhat positive?
Yeah, well, logically, we would expect that, right? I think everyone was really focused on the Fed and what they were going to do next, pretty much all of last year, even into this year. And it seems that the interest has moved away from the Fed a little bit. Yeah. Maybe that's due to the debt ceiling, other elements going on, but markets don't seem on edge or on the edge of their seat as much as they were on these numbers. We did see some interesting moves today, definitely some market reaction, but not what we're used to, not what we've seen over the last maybe 2 years. So I'm not super surprised, but yeah, it doesn't seem to be as impacting as it was in the past.
Just to take a look at this on a chart level, which I think is a good, it's a good visual of how fast inflation actually has corrected. If you go back to July of last year, we were at 8.5. I mean, literally had just come off that 9 number, and we were like, everybody was kind of like deer in the headlights, frozen as to what's going to happen next with inflation. And of course, it's ironic, everybody has kind of been giving the Fed a bad time. I'm actually watching this happen now, and many people thought that this day would never come. We would never see a 3%, and here we are in July. Already. So a big correction overall. The question I have to you, do you think Powell will go ahead and pull the trigger on the next 2 hikes?
The Fed they're hard to trust in some ways. They told us, these were the people that told us that inflation really wasn't real, that it was transitory.
Same guys.
They're not, sometimes the things they say isn't exactly reality, but the one thing they have really stuck to their word on is what they're going to do in these next hikes. I don't really see a scenario where we don't get one this month. Next month, they said they're going to do it. It's very likely, maybe, expectations tamper by then. But I don't think that they're going to pivot at this point, even though these numbers are great. They're good. Actually, if I do this really quick, I like the Trueflation data. This is showing us we've been at like 2%. That's at their 2% target, or very close. I'm not sure what they're waiting on. I'm not really sure. Maybe it's the lagging data they're using. They are on a warpath.
I think the scenario is still going to be jobs as it flows into the latter half here, because we have started to see a little bit of a correction there. Jim Bianco was on here saying even though he thinks he's also in your camp, even though he saw a little bit better than expected CPI report, probability is pretty high on this 25 basis points, which for all of you in the money market business is going to be loving that, because it's going to be higher for longer, which is what Powell has said over a little bit of the time. Before we go into Bitcoin, I wanted to go to your tweet right here, and it's on the US dollar. So talk to me about what's happening with the US dollar right now. Dollar typically going down usually means good things for Bitcoin.
It has in the past, absolutely. And I think logically, that's what we would expect. So if the dollar is stronger, if it can purchase more of anything, not just Bitcoin, the value of that thing, or how many dollars you need to buy it, should go down, and vice versa. Right now, the dollar is trading at a yearly low. I think actually last year it was lower in the beginning, but a yearly low. It's broken down below January, below April's lows. We're at like 100.5. I'm expecting to see the Dixie under 100 this year, and at the pace of today, it looks like maybe even by the end of the week.
Wow, by the end of the week. So that would be some pressure in the markets for sure, because that's going to adjust some of the charts. Let's get into charts for a moment. I want to jump over to the Bitcoin chart, get your analysis on where you think Bitcoin is going to be moving to, because we've had a pretty solid run here above the 30K mark. What is your certain play right now? Are you looking at a long or possibly a short for Bitcoin?
I'm actually in both at the moment. I
like
do have a long and a short. Yeah, I'm getting more and more into just always being in both sides of the trade. But Bitcoin's chart, things are looking pretty good. I didn't have time to totally set it up, but let me pull. Oh, no, not screen share. Oh, my. Okay, here we go. So Bitcoin doing pretty good. We've been very much on a linear path upwards this year. We've had moves that were exciting and then followed by months of nothing, pullback and repeat. This is a really healthy climb, in my opinion. This is akin, and at least in my experience, to like 2016, maybe 2000, maybe even the earlier rallies. This doesn't really look like 2019. That's something that has really caught my eye recently. If we zoom out here, I'm a guy, I love charts. And so I always look for patterns. I look for things to repeat. And so I was looking for this even before we started rallying this year. At the end of last year, I was saying, we're going to see a big rally, probably up to like 48K, and it's going to look like 2019. Well, the past is kind of steering me wrong again. This climb is not really like 2019. 19 was all up, euphoria, people FOMOing in. And this year, I think this is a healthier climb. We're seeing just this slow grind where, energy and interest, the euphoria isn't there. It's actually, I would say, as painful maybe as last year. It's very slow. It's unsatisfying. And so where we're at right now is very good. Of course, I don't know what's going to happen next. That would be great. Let me add on, should have had this before. Really quick, I'm just going to throw on my line in the sand for deciding when I'm bullish and bearish. And this has been my compass all year. Right here, 200 weekly moving average. It seems like we've already forgotten about it. This is historically a very important level of support for Bitcoin. We traded under it for the first time last year, sustained. And we spent a lot of the year kind of struggling as resistance. This was a big point of uncertainty for people. Even myself, I was a little concerned. We had never traded under this for a long time. We did. We came back up, and rejecting from there was very threatening. We did push past and find support there. Now we're chilling above. This is where I'm looking. If we go back below the 200 weekly moving average, that would be 27K. If we go back below and stay there, I think that this rally is likely over. However, it doesn't seem to be in the cards at the moment. Bitcoin really does seem to be holding strength. And something that is very interesting to me is, at this point, how long has it been since we've had a low? And that's 233 days. The longer we stay above it, the more likely it is that we're not revisiting it.
Yeah, I mean, when we look at the sentiment data, it's kind of going in that same track, and it's been a little bit unusual because of the things that we've tracked. I'll kind of slide in here. This is the last 30 days, and it has been somewhat sideways, but also still trending up. And we have two types of sentiment that we track, both amplification, which is more intent to purchase or get involved in a particular project, and then overall, kind of the top line sentiment. But this still shows a lot of movement up. But you're right, it goes back to the point we've tracked before, and that is no volatile moves up or down. Even though we saw a pretty aggressive overall market shift here, a lot of this was because of delisting of, Matic, Sol, and several others out of some of the exchanges that matter for a moment, and they all returned and got somewhat active again. So I'm in the same camp with you on where Bitcoin is going. Let me jump over to a couple of other tweets here, because this is kind of interesting. This came in from Charles Edwards. Despite trading at 30K, Bitcoin has same relative value opportunity as it did in Q4 2016. So trade below the global average at 36K. This was something that we talked about on the show yesterday with Mark Yusko. And that is the real value of Bitcoin. And because everybody's asking me, I'm sure they're asking you this, is it a good price right now? Of course, my answer is always, Bitcoin's always a good price.
Always a good price, right? That's interesting. It's interesting because, he's really kind of pointing out Q4 2016. I've never seen this tweet. And that's just what I was saying is, this rally isn't what I was looking for at the moment. The charts have a way of kind of pulling one over on us, and we think it isn't, and then it does. So it's possible, but like I'm also looking at that time frame. This climb is very different, at least 6 months into the year, than in the previous bear market. And I think that's something worth paying attention to, because even someone like me who's always bullish, I was looking at that and saying, hey, this is a reason that maybe we don't get super excited this year.
Right.
But
yeah,
it's
even though there's some
different.
people, some people are looking at this year, 2023, as being a big year for Bitcoin and Ethereum towards the end of the year. I think the key here will be how the next 2 quarters play out, obviously. But with CPI kind of softening, whether or not we see some adjustments in jobs, maybe there is a turnaround in Q4 and we could roll into the first part of next year really at a position. Timing here might be really nice around the halving, in April, and what we could be seeing as a correction and or a reversal from the Fed. That'll be the real question. Some things that I'm watching, though, Tom, is the alignment of how the regulatory front is moving. And this was a bill that we've talked about here on the show. This is, of course, Cynthia Lummis and Kirsten Gillibrand. They're proposing some regulation. That's actually going to the Senate today. Our DC insiders tell us that this may not necessarily get met with open arms. If we get a pushback on this one, in other words, if it falls on the floor and we don't get a correction or at least some sort of regulation, we still have 2 other or a potential 1 bill that could still come out of the House that I think has a better chance. Do you feel like we would see a market correction if this was looked at and said, oh, see, regulation's not going through?
I doubt it. I don't think it'll be that impactful, because that's pretty much par for the course. We've seen so many
kind of
things proposed and knocked down. But I think when we're looking at the regulatory front, something that we should keep in mind is kind of the reversal of attitude, honestly, since BlackRock filed. We've seen just like a different energy, a more friendly energy. I think BlackRock really, told their people like, hey, we want to make money on this, move over. And I think we're seeing that happen slowly. Yeah.
Everybody we've talked to, it's not a if, it's a when, for sure. So that's going to be the key here. If you're timing this right, man, if you hit this on the numbers, you could really end up in the right spot. Here's Ryan Selkis coming in on ETH staking. We're going to jump to ETH. The ecosystem is exploding. If ETH hits 50% staking ratio, it'll be a 3 to 5 billion revenue opportunity with centralized services and liquid staking vying to compete. So this is a big one, and he's got a couple of watch lists here. We've talked about some of these, Alluvial and Libra. But point being is Ethereum. A lot of people on our channel follow Ethereum in a big way. When you look at your chart right now, ETH has been strong here over the last 24 to 48 hours, and we continue to see that. What is your position on ETH?
Ethereum was kind of struggling to catch bids there for a little bit with this sell-off on Bitcoin. Let's see, that was back like the 7th or 8th. It was trading mostly sideways while Bitcoin was recovering a little bit. And it was a little sketchy for a minute. And it does seem to be now moving back up, kind of back in line with Bitcoin. I was a little worried because I'm somewhat skeptical on the ETH-BTC pair. It's been just so long at this level that it does look like maybe it wants to go down and kind of fill in some of the inefficiencies in its chart. Just probably down towards like the 0.05 level, maybe even lower. But it does seem to be a little healthier here. I'm curious about that staking metric. I don't follow the staking percentages on Ethereum very closely. Is that 50%? Is that up for the year?
Yeah, it's been rising for quite some time, continuing to increase. And now we're getting at pretty much kind of a critical mass of staking. And it, even though there's been a lot of pressure on ETH here in the US, globally, Ethereum is looked at as kind of the new money of the internet. So it's a very interesting aspect. And I would agree with Selkis from Asari is that this is getting ready to explode. If it continues to see this kind of performance, we're watching and tracking Lido and, some of the others, if you guys are not,
it's undeniably bullish, right?
Yeah,
like it's,
very good.
If you have asset that can't be sold, it's not a bad thing. So your Ethereum lovers out there, you want to see that metric come up. That's more supply removed. We talk about deflationary, inflationary. Well, it's not technically deflationary locking it up, but it is effectually deflationary when you lock these up because they can't be sold. So you want to
Right.
see that continue up, and that's likely, if we see Ethereum have a big run here, that's probably going to be coupled with it.
Well, and it took a nice little sharp rise. We saw this go up about almost 20% here just since the 15th of June. A little bit of adjustment down here to right at 14, but not much of a move. This was something that we were again following. ETH took a big correction in our sentiment data, and we're actually going to do a video over in the Diamond Circle around that topic. So for those of you guys who are not in the Diamond Circle, get in. We always drop that additional content over there. But there's some interesting things happening with ETH right now. If you're looking at ETH on a forecast right now, it's trading at 1880. It had clipped above 19 for a little bit. Do you feel like Ethereum is going to hit the 2K mark here, say within the next 90 days?
Yeah, that's looking pretty likely. 2K, I could see 2K even by the end of the month. I mean, if Bitcoin continues kind of holding this level, even if we have a slight move up, which I do think we see at least 32K, even if 2019 plays out again and we go back to the lows. I think we hit about 32K kind of minimum, and I couldn't see Ethereum not hitting 2000 again in that scenario.
Yeah, well, a lot of good things right now, I think, with the somewhat positive nature of what's happening with the potential ETFs, and maybe we've got something brewing here. And also, I think now the pressure is on from so many other places around the world on our regulators to kind of get things going. All right, I want to move on to a couple of things here. One, of course, is Cathie Wood. So she dumps some Coinbase. Not a bad thing. She took some profit, hits $90, which was a fantastic play for her. So kudos to Cathie. A couple of points that she hit on was taking some profits. I think this is the big statement right here. Not as big of an issue because Coinbase is still one of her top 5, so I anticipate it's going to be there for a little bit. And then Coinbase actually has done something very interesting. They've launched a messaging function to the crypto wallet. So this is going to get intriguing. And we're going to do a full video on this for you guys to give you kind of a viewpoint of this. This could be, I don't know, very interesting, I think, in the way, or especially in the wake of what we've seen already with crypto Twitter and Threads starting to kind of go at it a little bit. It'd be interesting if this plays out. If you're looking at the Coinbase stock right now and you say, okay, can this thing go to $100? Is it possible? This has been a pretty good stock over the last little bit. What is your opinion on this one?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I definitely see Coinbase trading at 100, probably not even in a long period of time. Like, its chart looks pretty solid. What I really like about it, though, is that Coinbase as a chart seems to be moving with Bitcoin. I mean, that's logical, but doesn't necessarily have to happen. And almost every time I get an alert from Coinbase on my chart, we see Bitcoin moving as well. And I think that's showing a healthy correlation, healthy relationship.
Yeah, and I think the key here will be for those of you that are in Coinbase, and are you aligning some of your investments with projects that support what's happening in the crypto markets and obviously Bitcoin, and things like MicroStrategies, other things like, I know you had mentioned that earlier. What are your thoughts on MicroStrategy? Because that would be another play that could be solid.
Well, I said this in a stream recently when we were talking about the ETF approvals, and I said, what kind of things can we look at that might suggest an approval or not? And the things that came to mind were obviously Bitcoin's price, but MicroStrategy, Coinbase, these two stocks are interwoven with an ETF, grayscale premium in there too. But Coinbase being named the custodian and watchdog for what iTrust BlackRock's ETF, undoubtedly going to move. I'm a big believer that the news comes, the chart moves, and then the news comes. And so I'm watching Coinbase very closely, but also MicroStrategy, because MicroStrategy in many ways is functioning as an ETF kind of unofficially, right? It's just buying Bitcoin, and you can get exposure indirectly to that Bitcoin just by buying MicroStrategy. So to see that move up and Coinbase move up here, I think today, MicroStrategy hit 420. Coinbase up to like 92. I think that those, if we see that continue to climb, maybe Coinbase up to like 110, I think that that's going to be a very good sign that BlackRock's making progress, or at least taking steps that are being successful towards an ETF.
Yeah, and there's probably some things happening within the bowels of Wall Street that we do not know, but the insiders, of course, do know, and we're watching some of this pretty heavily. Okay, so we're going to get into some altcoins now. I want to start off with Solana and get your chart. But Solana, the question mark, is it going to hit 30 bucks again? You know, bullish pattern sparks kind of this new recovery for Solana. A lot of buyers looking at this. And Solana took a massive move on the charts here recently as well, both in sentiment but also in price. When you look at your chart, tell us, what do you think?
Yeah, let's pull up this thing. So Solana, this is on the monthly time frame. It has been many months. Actually, in January, it looks like it was in slow. Many months at this level, kind of around $23, $24. I do like what it's doing this month. I'm looking for a close above $20.80. That's going to be a bullish engulf on the month. It's going to be a strong setup potentially into August. What is, of course, on my mind here is we've spent so much time at this level that we absolutely have resistance in this $23, $24 level. It's definitely not going to be easy to break through. But the good news is if you can get past it, you have a pretty clear move up into like 32. I was looking for that number actually earlier in the year. It did not play out. But I could see it returning to there with just a small move to the upside, and holding a strong close into this month is likely going to be the first signal that it's going to make that move. So I'm watching it, hoping it can get past, let's say, like 24 bucks.
Yeah, I think some of the things that we've seen with Solana, it has been at least a bit of a resurrection from its low around $8 in December. So the fact that we've continued to see that, even though when you look back on Solana, I mean, it had hit that $26, almost $27 back here in February, which was not a bad number. And then obviously this was the FTX fall off right here. So your thought is that this maybe returns up in this range right here, in that $36 range. So a lot of improvement would have to take place there. We haven't seen anything that's pushed that hard on Solana, but I do like it as one of our assets right now. It's one of the tokens that we are holding, along with Avalanche and a handful of others. All right, so Solana's good. We're going in kind of down the list here. I want to go to the next one. Let's see, what else do we have that I wanted to hit on? This was talking about this was the Solana key metrics and other top layer ones. Also turned a race to be the fastest, cheapest. Everybody kind of knows that. I feel maybe you're brand new to the show and you're not tuned in to all of the kind of the blue chip altcoins right now just yet, and you're just learning. Go do some research on Solana, Avalanche. If you like Cardano, want to get into some of these other layer ones. These are good ones to take a look at. Matic, if you want to tie into some layer twos, but interesting stuff right there. Also, when we get into things like Avalanche and Litecoin, I know we're going to touch on both these points. Avalanche obviously making a big move on trying to leverage the Web 2 to Web 3 communities. How does Avalanche look for you on your charts?
So Avalanche looks all right. I don't like to be pessimistic. So Avalanche not quite in the same condition as Solana. It had that similar rally with the rest of the market in January. However, last month hitting a new yearly low, that's going to differentiate this from Solana. Solana held pretty tight. If I pull this back over, it held pretty tight on the lows even here just this year, whereas Avalanche moved lower. Now, it didn't break back here in July of 21 around $9.33. It did hold that support. You gotta see Avalanche hold it this month. If we see a lower low this month, you really have just this gap. You have this monthly candle that rocketed up in January. This is inefficient price action. Market does like to fill in inefficient price action. If you lose 933, you're looking at 433 quickly. That's a big drop. That is a big drop. So this isn't to say that has to happen, but that's what's on my mind here. The lows differentiating from Solana really don't set this chart up in the way I would like to see as much.
Yeah, for sure. All right, so Tom, Bitcoin, Litecoin. Some people like to kind of compare the two. I know you're a proponent of both of these. Here's Santa coming in. Litecoin's millionaire addresses are continuing to increase in numbers. They're happening with, basically a month away now for Litecoin. So prices corrected a little bit over the 4th of July. not bad. There's been a little bit of a rally and some whale accumulation. If you look at that chart there from sentiment, not a bad move here, but it is somewhat kind of like in the precursor to what you see in the halving with Bitcoin, that lead up run. How does this end up on the other side of the halving for Litecoin?
Well, the last halving, we saw Litecoin rally into it. Arguably, it's rallying into it now. It's definitely a different move. Kind of similar again, 2019 with Bitcoin, Litecoin, same thing. Really just an upwards move that gets hammered. This one differentiates itself absolutely, pulling this up with that same kind of staircase. Now, this is not the prettiest candles, right? A lot of wicks, a lot of indecision here. And if we look to the left on Litecoin from January of 22, about $109. That's where we opened 2022. That is acting as a pretty strong resistance here on Litecoin. You can see that just straight line right over, right on the monthly candle rejecting. This is not what I'd like to see. However, it is holding on to gains versus last month as long as it's trading above $90, which I believe it will. I think it will continue that this month. I wouldn't be surprised to see August be a pretty interesting green candle for Litecoin. And where that might end up, I think looking left again, $121. This is such a critical level. It would be interesting to see Litecoin rally to 121 again and reject on the halving again. That would make me sad. But I think that the odds of seeing 120 are pretty good on Litecoin in this quarter, we'll say.
Yeah, just kind of get the Litecoin halving down here, 21 days out. So it's coming. We'll see how it plays out, with the price. That's one that I'm watching for sure. Tom, when you look at the current market, the way it is, and a lot of people are looking at how do you play these, because there's, some projects have been performing, some projects have not. Overall market is kind of somewhat flat, at least if you look at the DeFi projects, you look at even go into Web3 and Metaverse, we've seen some movement, in a handful of those. What's your overall market condition right now? Are you bullish or bearish? What's your position?
Well, I'm bullish, and I say I'm always bullish, but I'm actually shorter term bullish right now. If we're looking at alts, though, Bitcoin dominance is still pretty high, so that's maybe a blessing and a curse. We're at about 51%. And what that means is that alts are very much pushed down by Bitcoin or suppressed in their Bitcoin value. So the people out there who want to be optimists, that is alts are at discount, right? They're cheap. They're not as expensive versus Bitcoin. There's potential for big upside gains there if you think dominance is going to top out here. But that also does put into play that dominance may continue higher, and that might mean that you are not really at the bottom of these alts valuations, at least versus Bitcoin. That doesn't mean their dollar value has to go down. It's just against Bitcoin. So it'd be their Bitcoin pair. We could see their dollar pairs actually continue to climb up and just essentially be outpaced by Bitcoin in that scenario. So I think there's, it's a blessing and curse. Like I said, there's some good deals out there. Picking winners is definitely going to be hard. And you're also making a bet not only that these are going to go up, but that dominance is also topped out here, which is a hard bet for me to take on. I think if we see a little bit more upside on Bitcoin dominance, maybe towards the 60% level, and then a pullback, I think that would be a really good signal to maybe pick up alt positions or create new positions.
I mean, technically, if we look back at the dominance chart, I mean, it's been all the way back to September of 21, or no, April of 21, since we saw these kinds of numbers in the plus 50 range. So it's an interesting chart because we have not seen these kind of moves here recently. Granted, we're hovering around 30K on Bitcoin, but to your point, some of the alts have actually done decent under these kinds of pressures with what's happening here with dominance from Bitcoin. So you're right. There is a lot of move that could easily take us up to 60%, as you guys see there on the chart, where this is going for sure. So interesting one right here. Tom, so we're going to get into I think we've got do we have a poll? Okay, yeah. So we're going to get into the poll, see what the audience says. Let's take a look. Where will Bitcoin go before dumping? So everybody's looking at 35K, and they're looking at possibly a downtrend. If it were to dump, since that's the kind of the theme here around 35, where would it go to?
Okay. If I was looking for a dump, I have to have better charts management. Here we go. So if I was looking for a dump, I'd probably be playing down in this zone. So I would expect this to be bought up quickly, similar to the two dumps we've seen this year in June and back in March. Kind of a V-shaped bottom. And at this moment, if we're not going to see a higher high yet, I'm going to be looking at least to see the long swept here on our consolidation throughout June. And that would put us just below 29.4. I could easily see a small wick and then a move to the upside. But if we're looking for a real dump to appease the bears, I'm definitely looking at 28.5 and 27.2. These numbers are critical to the chart. We have a quarterly bearish engulfing at 28.5. Charts love to kind of tease these engulfings before they move in a different direction. And then below, bearish engulf at 27.2 for the month. I think both of these are really solid places to look potentially to take positions. And if we use our Fibonacci retracement tool, we see our golden retracement, the 618, right there at that bearish engulfing line. And it also lines up really well with our 200 weekly. We talked about that before, right around 27K. I'm not convinced the bears have what it takes to bring us to that level. But if they do, I would definitely expect to see some kind of pattern here repeat with a sharp V-shaped bottom and likely recovery back up to this 30K zone. But I'm thinking your audience is right with that 35. No, we made it so far in the episode. Oh, well.
No problem. We've got your audio there, and you look good on the freeze frame.
Thank you.
You're fine. We're gonna get out of here. Make sure and smash the like button, guys. If you do like these shows where we bring in additional TA analysis, let us know. Just hit the like button, and of course, if you're not subscribed to the channel, make sure and do that as well. Thomas, thanks so much for stopping in today. If you guys have not followed him on YouTube, you've got to go check out Tom Crown on YouTube, and you can also catch him over at Tom Crown Crypto, of course.
Thank you, Paul. It's great to be frozen here.
Good seeing you. All right, guys.
Cheers.
Maybe you're listening. You bet. Maybe you're listening on the podcast side right now, and you just missed a whole slew of charts. You don't want to miss those. So let's jump over to the visual experience here, and that's on YouTube. Just search Paul Barron Network. You'll find us. And the number one thing you have to do, even before you subscribe, is to join the Diamond Circle. We always put a link down below in each of the videos so you can get to that. It's our private member group, and it's where we drop additional content. We do all sorts of additional material. We do additional research and data over there. You get our research from all of our shows when we do the deep dives. Sometimes that really helps people in kind of creating a narrative for your investing strategy. So anyway, it's a free deal. Go do that. And of course, if you want to catch me, follow me on Threads. It's just at Paul Barron. I'm trying to build my Threads account over there. So we'll see you there. Thanks again for stopping in right here on TechPath.